Welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast. I'm Kristi Piehl. At the age of 4, Vernice FlyGirl Armour dreamed of being a police officer on horseback, a dream that evolved into becoming America's first African-American female combat pilot. From her early days and her time as a Nashville police officer to her historic flight school graduation and groundbreaking achievements in the military, Vernice is a trailblazer. Vernice, thank you for joining me on the podcast and your willingness to share your story.
Hey, I am excited to be here. Look, coming in hot.
Oh, look. Okay, if you were listening to this and not watching it on YouTube, get yourself on YouTube to see what's under the hat there. Before we go too deep into the conversation, I want to thank you for your service because you have served our country and your communities in multiple different ways. And I want to make sure I show you a debt of gratitude for that.
Honor to serve. Always an honor to serve.
And part of your service is this trailblazing story where you had aspirations of being in roles where you were either other or the first. So when you're a 4-year-old girl and you're like, I want to be a cop and I want to be a cop on horseback, what inspired you to have that dream?
So I was born in Chicago, and as we know, as many people know, the police officers on horseback are huge. The mounted patrol, right? I always said I wanted to be on the mounted patrol. At the age of 6, I got my very first pony, and I'm like, yes, I am halfway there. So it was a long time dream for sure.
And because you could see other people in these roles, there's the famous saying, you can't be what you can't see. And so when you saw people on horseback, did you see people that looked like you on horseback serving in that way? Or was that a bigger dream than you realized as a 4-year-old girl?
No, I think I just saw people police officers riding horses, and I thought that was cool, right? And I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to you can't be what you can't see. Just be Now, is it easier to see somebody and then say, "Oh wow, yeah, I want to do that"? And there have to be people that did things that other humans hadn't, like the 4 minute mile or the first astronaut in space, or I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about the very first things that were ever done, right? That someone else hadn't done. Um, and corporate America, for instance, seeing people in leadership roles leaves you feeling a little bit better that, hey, I could achieve that as well, versus I'm the most senior person. Is this even a possibility for me? Is the door open for me? Do I have to break the door open? Do I have to crack the ceiling down? Right? Kind of thing. So, not saying it's easy at all whatsoever, right? But yes, and not but, and I always like to say, and how do I add value to a statement, right? Seeing somebody in it definitely leaves you feeling like it's more achievable, for sure.
And you mentioned breaking down doors, and we talk about the glass ceiling, and that's been talked about for, more than a generation. What role have you had where you really felt like, man, I am standing here, bang, 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 and gosh darn it, I'm going to be the one to break down the door?
When I was becoming the Marine Corps' first Black female pilot, I applied the first year and I was not accepted into officer candidate school. 88% attrition rate of people that applied the next year. Women could only apply once a year. So I was a part of that 12% the next year that reapplied. And the reason is people go on and like get jobs and, you know, like live their life, right? So only 12% go on to apply again. Didn't get accepted that year. Third year applied again. Didn't get accepted that year. Usually I say third time's a charm. Didn't get accepted. The fourth year, I have no idea what the statistics are. I'm an anomaly at this point. And they were probably thinking, okay, this chick is not going away. Right. I was not. I applied again. I was accepted, graduated at the top of my class in officer candidate school, then went on to flight school, graduated July 21st, 2001, less than 60 days before 9/11, at number one in my class and number one out of the last 200 to graduate. So delay is not denial, failure is fertilizer, and the detour is the path.
Ooh, I love that. And Like, and first of all, congratulations. I mean,
Thank
you know, it's impressive, all the things you mentioned. Do you think that from your story, that particular part of your story, that people can draw out of that and apply to their own life? Persistence? Is it mindset? Like, what is it that you think kept you that fourth time going, I'm doing it. This is the year. And if it's not this time, I'm doing it next time. And I'm going to do it. Where does that come from?
I knew I was qualified. I knew I was good. I knew I'd be an amazing pilot, and there was no reason for me not to be accepted. So, um, Granny always said, anything worth having is worth working for. I know we've heard a lot of people, say that saying, but where does the persistence, tenacity, stick to itiveness, if you will, grit come from? When you want something bad enough, you don't stop. It's like, if I may, if you're hungry after this podcast, what are you going to go do?
Get some food.
Let's say you go home and you decide you're going to eat at home because you're going to eat a little healthier and there's some healthy food at home, and you go home and you discover there's no food at home. What are you going to do?
Me personally,
Yes.
I would either go to the store or I would order food to my house.
So it's a horrible snowstorm and Uber Eats and Grubhub and all that stuff's not working and the stores are closed. Now what are you going to go do?
Go to my neighbors.
Okay, your neighbor is gone on vacation in the Bahamas. Luckily, they missed the snowstorm. Now what?
My other neighbors.
Okay, so do you see how far we're going?
Mm-hmm.
At no point did I hear you say, I'm just not going to eat for the week. Like, it's just, that's just not an option. When we're hungry, we're going to keep going and going and going and going until we find something to eat, or we're going to die trying. Would you agree? Are we not going
Totally.
to die trying? We are literally going to die working for it. If we had that kind of mindset and mentality with other things we want in life, I think a lot of people would be more successful.
Okay, now if you at the beginning, I said you got to watch the YouTube version. Now you got to watch YouTube version again because I'm just going to stand up and I'm clapping, and all you can see is like the middle part of my body because, of course, the camera didn't move. But I totally agree with you, and I've never heard it said quite like that. And so often the voices in the head by year 2 or year 3, the voices go, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe they see something wrong with me that I don't see. I'm going to let the dream die. Maybe this just isn't time. So perhaps the point is less about the resilience and tenacity, but more about the hunger, staying hungry.
Absolutely. And there have been times in my life with my success, with my business. I've been in business now 17 years, speaking and teaching people how to get paid to speak. And I said, sometimes success has made me lazy. It's like the bank account's fat, bills are paid, things are good. I'm hanging out with my little girl, life is good. And so when there's another opportunity and it takes a ton of work, it's like, do I really want to leave the beach and go back and, and do all that stuff? So the hunger for it, like being like so driven that giving up, that's just not even an option. That's not even in a thought process. It's like if you have to go to the bathroom, right? You're not going to stop until, you're still going to go no matter what, right? Because you can only hold it so long. So again, how do we create that kind of drive and thirst and hunger for the things that we really want? And I heard a saying a little while ago that I absolutely love, because people will say they're committed, but the tongue in your shoe is louder than the tongue in your mouth.
Let that just sink in, folks. Let that just sink in.
Yeah. I like that.
It's so true. So not only do we have to tell ourselves the right things mentally and have maintain the hunger and the ability to like move forward, because you can be real hungry, but if you're not going to take the step to whatever it is to feed it, you can just stay hungry. But you also, I suspect, had people around you who were saying, you're right. Vernice, you're right. You should keep trying for that. You should keep doing that. You built a community or people around you who supported and lifted you up, as opposed to a bunch of people around you who said, yeah, or no.
So when I was a kid, we lived in an all white neighborhood. We were the only Black family. Only 3 Black kids in school. My brother were 2 of them. And the housing crash of 81 happened. Now, I didn't know it at the time. I just thought we were moving and we were going to see Granny, right? But my dad had lost his job. The house was being foreclosed on. As a little kid, I didn't know all this stuff, right? So we moved to Memphis, Tennessee. I get enrolled in school. There are only 3 white kids in the whole entire school. So flip the script, right? In that case. And I stood out. Like, I was in 4th grade, so I spoke different. I talked different. I had long hair, so kids would say, "Oh, you talk like a white person. Oh, you think you're white. Oh, you have horses. You think you're better than us." And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. What is speaking like a white person? What difference does it make how long my hair is or isn't, or that the fact that we have horses? And so I was different. So I didn't fit in with Black people. Definitely didn't fit in with white people because I'm Black, right? So that's I ended up getting bullied like second day of school, and I thought I was pretty tough. I'm talk to this little girl. She's in front of me saying some stuff. I'm like, "Fine, hit me," and she's like, I'm like, "Ah," blood goes everywhere. I'm like, "Oh my God," I'm crying. The teacher was angry with me because she thought it was my fault as the new kid starting trouble, and I'm like, "No." And that started the period in my life when I was bullied, and at a certain point, I lost my voice. So as I moved on, at a certain point, the bullying got less, but it was still, there even in high school, with certain girls. Went to college, um, got invited to the police academy. Finally, finished, got on the streets, and that's where I really started to reclaim my voice. And actually, I enlisted in the Army before that, so that was actually the first step. Then the police department, and I couldn't just go up to a guy and say, "Excuse me, sir, could you turn around and put your hands behind your back?" Right? Like, turn around, put your hands behind your back. Right? I had to embody it, even if I wasn't feeling it in that moment. That command presence, and I learned how to show up like that. Then becoming a Marine, and I still remember walking down the hall. I was at flight school. I was a first lieutenant. I'd been in the Marine Corps for a little while, and there was some conflict, and I needed to talk to this other woman about something. And she was coming towards me, and I was like, "Okay, just do it, just do it, just say something, say something." Then she got to my shoulder, then she passed, and I was like, "Oh," and I was like, and I turned around and said, "Excuse me," right? And then we had that conversation. But I remember how hard it was for me to galvanize the courage, right? To 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 say something to her and to have what I felt was a difficult conversation. And I am a recovering conflict avoidant. I tell people that all the time. And I know, like, to be in the cop and the Army and the Marine Corps, now an entrepreneur, and I'm a speaker, I'm on stage, it doesn't seem like it fits. That would have been where I started, but I did. So I know if I can come through that, if I can maneuver and navigate through those different places in my life to become who I am and what I'm still becoming, right? In the process of becoming, and achieve the things that I've done, that it's it's possible for others who could be in the same, better or worse positions that I'm in. It's just, what are we doing and where are we placing ourselves in life to be able to overcome those obstacles. Now, full circle, bring it back around. You asked, were there people that supported me? My parents said I could do anything. I could do anything. And so when I told them I wanted to be a cop, they were like, wait a minute, that's dangerous. I didn't even tell them I was enlisting in the Army. I just did it, and they found out afterwards. And they didn't want me to be a cop because it's dangerous. I wanted to go in the Marine Corps. My dad was a Marine, 3 tours Vietnam. My grandfather was in World War II, Mumford Point Marine. That's when the Marine Corps first allowed blacks in, but it was still segregated. So it's like the counterpart to the Tuskegee Airmen, very historic. And my dad did not want me to be a Marine. He said, "Baby, I saw how they treated women when I was in, and I just don't want my baby to be treated that way." And I said, "Well, Dad," and it sounds cliche-ish, but I really felt, if I don't, who will? if I don't go in and try to create change and work to create change, who will? If not now, when will we ever? Right? So I went in, and it's the short story that I shared with you at the top of the hour with the podcast, but it was definitely a journey going against what my parents wanted for my life or saw in my life. And I knew that they've lived their lives. They had fun and they had adventures. And my granny caught my mom leaning out the window smoking a cigarette when she was 17 and doing all the wild stuff she probably did when she was a kid, right? And I said, she had her turn. It's my turn now. And I don't want to live my life as a life of regrets, wishing I'd done this, wishing I'd done that. So YOLO, right? I was living that even back then.
And it's, I think, a really powerful message that there's so many people around that have opinions. And I think with social media, there's more people around a modern day 20-year-old or 18-year-old or 15-year-old with an opinion about where you should take the next step in your life journey, where your career should go, where you should go to school. And at the end of the day, it's really, really important to figure out what you want, what your voice is telling you, how to galvanize, find the courage, some of the things that you said earlier. And that's really hard, especially when many, many young people don't know.
That's
They
right.
don't know.
That's right. But that's the cool thing about the internet. That's the cool. Me and my friend chat. We have conversations all the time. Chat GPT, right? AI. You can go on and you could literally have a conversation. Like I was looking at diabetes and being pre-diabetic, which I am not anymore, thank goodness. And I said, well, um, you know, how does the A1C test read my blood sugar but tell me what the average has been over the last 4 months? Like, how does that work? And it listed this whole thing out, right? And then I said, well, can I just exercise then, and where it'll like take the sugar off of the blood cells? It was like, no, it doesn't exactly work like that. But and when you exercise, it does this. Like, I had this whole conversation where I felt like, I'll get in trouble for this a little bit, but I felt like I understood even more than talking to a doctor. Now, edit that, right, as you will, as you listen to it. I'm not saying go to Chat GPT for medical advice. It was explaining a concept, like don't use that in lieu of a doctor. I just left my doctor's appointment and I wanted to understand the physiology of the body a little differently. But my point is that I was able to discover and have a discovery conversation, quote unquote conversation, with an AI bot that was able to share things and use examples in a way that I hadn't heard or thought of before. I was like, oh, wow. So go on a passion quest, go on an interest quest, go on a quest where you look to see, what do I love? What do I like? What do I want to do with my life? When I went to college, I knew I didn't want to major in biology or English or what. I wanted to major in something that was going to contribute to my life. So I decided to major in exercise science, emphasis and like personal training and all that stuff. Why? Because I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to stay in shape. I wanted to be healthy, right? So my little girl is sitting here with me, soaking it all up, listening. For all my YouTube people, here she
Soak
is.
it in, honey. Soak it in. Mom is speaking truth. Hi, sweetie. Is mommy making you do work over there? Is that homework?
That's right. Because she's homeschooled, because we travel a lot. We go to a lot of cool places, and she goes to keynotes with me and she does all that stuff. So when you're thinking about the life that you want and what you want to create, how do you build your family into that life? I just got off the phone with a client, and we're going to be just north of Savannah a little bit. And they said, oh, well, we have these cool villas and you can do this and the kids can do that. And we want you to bring them and bring the family. It's like, how do you work your family into your life? Does that mean they go on every single speaking trip with me? No, but they don't go to like Fargo, North Dakota and places
No
like that,
shade
right?
on you, Fargo people listening.
I love you, Fargo, and all my Fargo corporate
Oh,
clients up there. But they do love going to Orlando,
Mickey
Vegas,
Mouse does have a pull.
Phoenix.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Miami, New York, Bahamas. I mean, speaking engagements are in some really cool places. So I'm blessed to be able to share that experience with my family.
You said a couple of things that I think are really critical for, what the Gen Z figured it out. And I would say some of us who aren't Gen Z screwed it up, frankly, but Gen Z, I think, has a better mindset when it comes to work-life harmony and how would a family perhaps fit in. And, you don't need to have a location and you don't need to have a 9 to 5 if that doesn't suit you, but also the passion quest kind of concept is something that speaks to what fulfills me, not what
Right.
feeds me, meaning what pays my bills, not the feed hunger
Right.
conversation we had
Right.
earlier. But if you hate something, but it pays well, I know that, that paycheck when you're 20 or 18 seems like the biggest important thing, but like you're staring 30, 40 years of work in the face. Do you want to be miserable? Are you?
Tell you what,
No.
when I frequently say when I'm 80 years old, sitting on my front porch, looking back on my life, what am I going to be excited that I did or regret that I didn't? And I promise you, I'm not going to be excited that, oh, I worked 80 hours in the office that week. Oh, I achieved that title. Oh, it's not going to be, I hit the record that year. It's going to be the vacations I went with my family on, the time I spent with my kids, the, the 80th birthday party I'm getting ready to go hang out with my mom at now, or the surprise trip I took home to visit my mom for a birthday like 15, 16, 17 years ago. And my dad passed away the day I got home. Had I not taken that trip and said, you know what? No, I'm going. Wow, that would have been a thing, a moment, potentially a regret, right? So the gutsy move in your gut, it's right. It takes guts to do it, but you got to take action. If you don't take
Yeah,
action, it wasn't a gutsy move. It was just a gutsy thought.
yeah, back to the tongue and shoe example
That's right.
earlier.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to, before we wrap up our conversation, you're speaking now, you have some exciting things that you're involved in. How can people find you?
Yep, they can absolutely find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, Vernice FlyGirl Armour. I have several programs that I don't even call them programs. They're just things that enrich your life and where you can get paid to share your story. I started out a long time ago making $2,500 a keynote. And I promise you, organizations negotiated me down from there to like 1,500 or 1,700. But that was still a great payday. Like I did 3 of those in 1 month. It was like, what? That's $7,500. I mean, I was like, what? This is awesome. Then I went to an event and one of my speaker friends said, hey, how much are you making now for you? How much are you charging for your keynotes? I was like, $2,500. She was like, what? That's it? Are you kidding me? You've got to raise your fee. I was like, what are you talking about? I thought I was out there killing it. And she said, don't raise it to 5,000, but 5,500. Why? Because it rolls off the tongue. 5,500. I was like, oh, 5,500, not $5,000, 5,500. Right. And people still negotiated me down from there, but it was more than what I was getting before. Then eventually, 10 and 20. And today I have it's a 50K keynote. And the program I launched a little while back is called the 50K Keynote Formula: how to craft and deliver your killer keynote and stay book solid. Right. And whether you think you'll get 50K for a keynote, it's, do you want to add 50K to your day, your week, your month, or your year using your story in the various places or with organizations that would pay to hear your story? Women who've accomplished some stuff. Like even you, Kristi, I don't know if you're speaking at women's leadership conferences and doing stuff, you should totally be getting paid for your talk, right? And back to that 80 years old sitting on your front porch. If you only had 5 minutes to share some lessons that you've learned in life, because I hear people say, well, I don't really have a story. Everybody has a story. Everybody's learned something. If you had 5 minutes to share one of the most important lessons you've ever learned, you know, what would you say? Would you have something to say? And I've never asked one person that said, no, I wouldn't have anything to say. No, we have amazing treasure inside of us. Are you willing to get paid for your treasure? So vernicearmour.com, LinkedIn, Instagram. And I also have a challenge called Speak on More Stages. So I'm excited. I'm living my life. I get to stay home more now and not be on the road as much and just create those amazing moments that I'll be talking about on my front porch.
I love it. Well, if you get to live next door to that front porch, you are a lucky person because you get to sit there and listen to Vernice share her stories when she's 80 years old, and you know she has some stories. So thank you for sharing yours today. The last question I have before you go and we say goodbye to you and your lovely daughter. Is there a quote you could share with us that could leave us one last little nugget?
Yeah. I'm going to take the liberty to say two. The first
Please.
one is Dr. King. You don't have to see the entire staircase to take the first step. So many people get bogged down on not knowing how. Don't worry about the whole plan and knowing what the end game is. Just start taking the steps. And number two is my quote: acknowledge the obstacles, don't give them power. Find the solution, focus on success.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Bye to your little sweetie sitting over there listening to mommy.
Bye.
Oh, bye. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it. Now, folks, there's so many different pieces that we could take out of that story. I think the one that I will leave you with is what inside of you was hungry that you fed maybe with the wrong thing, and you know it's still a little pang there. What do you want to make hungry again so that you can step in, take the first step, and move forward to find and share your story? My hope is Vernice's story empowered you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find the strength to turn the page.